All right, welcome to the Am I Hunting podcast. Thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. So this episode is one I've been hoping for a while now. A good friend of mine, Mr. Richard Lee Witkop, he joins over. I finally convinced him to come on over and do a podcast with me. So basically, we sit down, kind of just BS a little bit, talk about the success that he had last year. He actually ended up shooting 2 bucks. One was that belonged to his dad, but he ended up putting it down for him. And then the very same hunt, I ended up catching with another one. And then that evening, also harvested a doe as well. So you get to listen to his story. We talk a little bit about why they were hunting the areas that they did, and what led to the success, and then the bit of an adventure to try to get those deer out of there. Then we go into basically talking his setup for this year, what his strategy is going forward, what type of terrain that he's hunting, why he's hunting it, and how he's going to try to capitalize on trying to zero in on a good buck for early season, really. So I'm not going to hold up too much on this one because it is a kind of a lengthy conversation. We get on some tangents and get off topic a little bit, but I do want to give you plenty of time to be able to listen and watch. So the only thing I do want to touch base on is that, this is really the best time of year, really. I mean, they've got all different seasons are open up. I mean, small game just open up. Bird season. People are out the goose hunting right now. Bear season, elk season. And it's just, it's that time of year where all these hunting seasons are opening up and we're getting to get out and, get out in the outdoors and do some hunting. So whatever your passion is, whatever type of game you like to go after, I mean, now's the time to really take it all in and, get after it, really. So again, not holding up much longer. Let's go ahead and jump into the conversation with Lee.
Months and then pick right up where we left off.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Like, even though we haven't seen each other in what? How many months?
God, it's got to be at least 8 or 10. At least.
You think that long even? I was going to guess 6.
God, there was still snow on the ground the last time I was here.
Was it? I remember we saw you after your surgery, at least. Because even Kim was surprised at how much weight you had lost.
Yeah, it was, I want to say it was like February or March.
I will say, though, man, your ears look a little big for your face now.
They do. They look extremely huge.
I know that when you came in, I'm like,
yeah.
I never remember his ears being that big.
It's back to high school when my ears were like Dumbo. I used to get called that. That was a nickname.
Well, that or they fit your face. Now they don't, man.
No.
You look good.
They don't. I look at my driver's license. I got pulled over the other day, and the cop looked at my driver's license, so he looked at me. I'm like, that's me. I promise you it's me.
I got a coworker, same thing, her employee badge. Yeah, you're like, that's not the same person.
No.
I freaked out because I ran her sleep study. Never remembered it. She started working for us months after she'd been with the department. She's like, "Oh yeah, you ran my sleep study." I'm like, "No, I didn't." Yeah. No, I would have remembered you. But yeah, no, she had the same surgery you did. It looks completely different. So,
dude, it is literally life changing.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you've been able to continue to keep the weight off and lose more weight yet. Because I've seen or heard of people that get the same surgery and they
put it right back on.
Put it all back on because they don't make the lifestyle change necessary to keep it off.
It's hard for that lifestyle change because I still fall into working so many hours. I want to eat late at night when I get home. So, I still have, I'll be the first to tell you, I still have pizza rolls in the house.
Yeah. It's
but
tough.
I only eat 4 or 5.
It's tough. Yeah. Because same thing happened to me when I was working night shift all the time. You go for the easy meal, and the easy meal is not a healthy meal. You're I don't know how many times I get home from work, working night shift, grab a bowl of Captain Crunch or Lucky Charms or something like that. Put down 2 bowls of Lucky Charms, and then go to sleep, and expect be surprised why I gained weight.
You gaining weight? Come on,
dude. Over one winter, because I was working so much, I gained 30 pounds. No joke.
Dude.
I freaked out. I was pushing 200 pounds. And I couldn't gain 5 pounds for like 10 years. Yeah.
Dude, you remember when we all used to go to the gym? You know they have no gyms like that anymore? Like Borgata doesn't exist. A gym like that, there is no gym for heavy lifters. None. So like I go to Battle Fitness now. Obviously, you used to go there.
Yeah.
I go there 2 to 3 times a week.
Do you really?
The last 2 weeks I haven't went because I've been so busy, but I try and go 2 to 3 times a week.
Well, we need to coordinate after because Kim and I are both thinking about starting to go again.
Dude, do it. I would love to have some. My brother goes with me.
Yeah? Yeah.
And I've been trying to find somebody that knows a little bit more about workouts and whatnot than I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was always about lifting big like Russ, and I can't do that no more.
Yeah. Well, I remember you had your knee issue. So, yeah, you gotta be careful of that.
Oh, dude, it doesn't even bug me anymore.
I was gonna say, how's it feel now?
It doesn't even bug me anymore.
Fantastic, man. But yeah, so the big thing was because I brought you on. I've been meaning to have you on because I wanted you to tell your story about your opening day bucks. Because was it Thanksgiving that you sent me the picture of the buck you got, and then you dropped the bomb that you got 2 bucks.
It was Thanksgiving Day when I got them both.
I thought it was opening day.
No, it was Thanksgiving Day.
So Thanksgiving Day, you got 2 bucks.
2 in 10 minutes. 3 for the day.
And didn't your dad get one that same day too?
Oh, that part of the first one was his. Technically, it was his.
Technically, it was his?
We went and set a clear cut by a creek that we had never even been in. We had drove through and seen deer. We just decided we were going to go in there and sit one morning, and I sat him up because he's got a bad leg up in the clear cut.
Okay.
I went down in by the creek and sat down. It was pretty open, so I knew I could get some shooting in, and there was a little opening in the clear cut I seen in the map, and I walked him in and set him in. We went in there after daylight. It wasn't nothing. We didn't figure we were going to see anything, but just to get a layout.
So you went in after it was already daylight.
Mm-hmm. It was daylight for probably about 20 minutes, half hour, so we knew where we were going.
Okay.
And I sat him down, and he just sat at the bottom of a tree. And I went down and sat by the creek, and it was probably, God, I want to say we sat there for like an hour, and all of a sudden I heard a shot. And so I knew we were the only 2 in there.
Okay.
Because we would have seen somebody else in there, or we would have heard him coming in. And I heard it shoot, so I knew it had to be him. And I was down by the creek, and I could hear some crashing coming down because it was down a little knoll to get to the creek. And it opened up, and I watched it come down, and it stops in the creek. Well, if it kept going, it was going to get too thick, and I really didn't feel like tracking in the swamp, and I knew it had to be his.
Okay.
So I shot it and killed it. Of course, it drops in the creek.
All right.
Were
you like? Did you see that it was bleeding or something?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could see the blood trail coming down. Not to mention the fact in my scope, I could watch it pumping out. Mm. So I knew it was.
So it was a dead deer walking.
It was a dead deer walking, but
you just wanted to.
How far did I really want to drag it? Because I knew my old man wasn't crossing the creek.
All right. So how far away was your dad from you?
About 80 yards.
Okay. So he was just basically up.
Just up on top of the ridge from me. Okay. It wasn't a huge clear cut by any means. So
could you technically see him from where you're at, or no?
If I would have stood up, I could have seen right over the knoll.
Okay.
All right. That's how close he was to me. I knew without a shadow of a doubt it was his shot.
All right.
So when it came down, I shot it. I didn't have any of my muck boots or anything on. You know, I had my regular work boots on.
Yes, I remember this part of the story that you.
So we drove the truck down by the creek because there was a campsite there, and I was probably 100 yards from it. So we went up, got the truck, drove it down, got his concrete boots out, which were not very tall, and the creek wasn't very deep where that one was shot. He tells me, he's like, I'm just going to leave my gun here. All right, that's fine. And I almost put mine in the truck, because what are the odds after 2 gunshots of seeing another deer? But it's rifle season, you know, you still get the bucks that are in late rut. You know, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and take mine. I know better than to do this. And I took like 20 steps from the truck, and an 8-point jumped in the creek. Like I watched it come down from where he shot that one, run into the creek. That's when I heard it and looked up standing in the creek. Well, I pull up, see it's got a big rack, drop it. in the creek. So its rack gets caught up on a log in the creek. So we go down, get his out. I still haven't gotten wet. And get his all gutted, get it up to the truck, get it in the truck. And I go to get mine, and I can't even get within 20 yards of the creek without being knee deep in muck. So I go down to where we shot his, and I come up the creek 8:30 in the morning, and I am soaked from the waist down in this creek. And then I have to drag it through all the muck. Yeah, I was ready to go home after that.
Well, I thought you had harvested too, so it was your dad's buck that you had
Yes.
shot and put down for.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he harvested one, and I thought you took two.
No.
That day.
Oh,
Okay.
I took another deer that day. It just wasn't a buck.
Okay.
Yep. That I won't shoot 3 deer in one day again.
Why not?
That was a lot of work.
Well, yeah, but it was worth it, wasn't it?
It was a pretty long season of not seeing anything or shooting anything, and then all of a sudden it all happens in one day.
Well, I mean,
Needless to say, you got a lot to be thankful for on Thanksgiving.
yeah, right? All right. So I do want to back up quite a bit to where, so why did you pick the spot that you did?
There was a lot of browse around that you could see that the deer were eating on.
Okay.
Like I said, we had drove through and seen a lot of deer, and I did a lot of scouting on like onyx hunt, a lot of internet scouting, and I had seen the topographic where it dropped down and everything, and it looked like a pretty good spot, and we had seen deer there. There was always deer crossing the deer tracks, crossing the road and whatnot, and it just looked like a really good spot to sit. So we just decided we were just going to go try it one day. We weren't seeing deer where we normally do, so.
Any ag in the area? Or
Nope.
So you're looking at terrain, and then there was the creek there.
Yep.
So you got a water source, and then what? Woody browse for?
Yeah,
food?
browse. It was a clear cut. So it was clear cut probably 2-3 years ago.
So they got all that new growth.
Exactly.
All the new trees coming in. Okay.
So when we walked in and I found that clearing and that, I was on a deer trail, and you could watch where the browse had been eaten.
Okay. That is one thing that I've noticed, like, as I've gotten better with my woodsmanship, that the noticing that browse area. Like, before, I would just walk through the woods, like, see a deer trail and just follow it. But now, having done it enough, start seeing, like, all those little saplings eating off the tops, missing leaves, and you're like, okay, there's deer in here because they're browsing.
So I grew up hunting over bait. I'll be the first to admit it. So it was a new thing for me to learn when it all got outlawed and everything. And my cousin, he didn't grow up hunting that way. He grew up hunting with looking for browse, looking for oaks, water, trails, scrapes.
Sure.
I mean, I still look for oaks and I still look for scrapes and rubs, and you look for the sign, but I really didn't care about beds. I was hunting on bait. Like, eventually they're going to come there.
Right.
Not so much anymore. So it's a new style of hunting, and I'm learning a lot as I go, but
same thing. Like, growing up hunting, I thought I knew more than I did, for sure. And then when I started getting back into it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Realized I knew nothing anymore.
Yeah.
And have had to relearn the whole process all over again. So that's primarily why I'm asking, is because I wanted to know what you saw, why you thought that was a good area. So you saw the browse, you got the trails, you got the creek there.
Yep.
Now, when you were around the creek, were you basically focusing on, like, where you knew that they were crossing the creek at a certain point?
So when I sat him down, I watched where the trail went over the ridge and goes down into the bottom by the creek. And it opened up like a little cedar type swamp down by the creek on the side that he was on still.
Okay.
And then when it crossed the creek, it went to a thick, muddy mess swamp, because there was another creek about another 400 yards that all wide into each other. So it just turned into a muddy mess the second you crossed the creek, which is why I didn't really feel like tracking that deer any farther over there than I needed to.
All right. Oh, yeah. All right. So how big was the buck that your dad shot?
Oh, it was a 5-point.
5 point? Probably what? 2-year-old or a year and a half, you think?
It was probably a 2-year-old. It was a pretty decent sized 5 point.
Yeah? All right. So he shot, you put it down. You guys, you're getting up. And then, because you hadn't made it back to the truck yet, and then your buck showed up.
Oh, right? we were to the truck. We drove the truck down by the creek.
Okay.
And that's when I got his boots on because I didn't plan on getting soaking wet. Okay. I was, in my mind, I was going to shoot it and just drop it and not have to cross that creek. Well, little did I know it had different plans.
Yeah. All right. So you got the truck down there. You're getting ready to get your dad's buck. And then
we turned around. Like I got my boots on and I turned around and we both started walking. Like I was headed back to get his, but I had kept my gun because weird things happen. And sure enough, they happened to me that day.
Yeah. That's good heads up, though, because, I mean, it's so easy to think, like, oh, we're done. Not worth carrying the gun back because it's just one more thing to carry. So that was good heads up. I mean, yeah, I mean, you only make that mistake probably once and realize, like, no. Always keep the gun with you.
And I've made that mistake. I went hunting with him years ago when I was a kid, and we had both put our guns away. We were getting ready to go back in and get the deer. And literally, we had no more than closed the doors. And a big buck comes running right out and stops like 70 yards from us. And neither one of us had a gun. All we could do is watch it.
Yep.
I turned around to try to get to the gun, but it was gone by then.
I've ran into the same situation, even just bow hunting, where like take my release off, put my arrow back in the quiver. And there's been times where like you run into a deer. Or I've had it happen more times with coyotes.
Yep.
Where and I've yet to get a coyote with my bow, and I'm trying so hard. But yeah, there's one didn't have my release on. I got my release on. I got my arrow knocked, and by the time I went to go draw back on it, that's when it realized I was there and it took off. So yeah, even when I'm coming in and out. It's like if it's an evening hunt, I put my release on before I make it, take off.
Yep.
In the morning, I leave my release on until I get back to the truck. Because I've run into so many deer that were just, there.
Right.
You stumble upon or you cross paths and you're not prepared. So, yeah, that's good heads up by having your gun with you.
Especially that time of year. They're still getting the bucks that are late into the rut. And they're still acting stupid. I mean, no deer in their right mind is going to run where they just heard 2 gunshots.
You wouldn't think, yeah.
But he truly did not care.
Now, did he come down basically the same trails that your dad's buck did? Or?
No, he actually came down closer to me. Okay. So I don't even know that he was on the trail because I didn't see him until he jumped into the creek. So from where his was, it was probably 100 yards from the truck when we drove down by the creek. And then literally I took maybe 10, 15 steps from the truck and I seen him and shot him like damn dead between the truck and his deer.
Yeah. That's what's up. That's funny though. The fact that he came within that close.
And I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, it was one of those times when you're down and out. Like you're just like, man, I haven't seen no deer. It's been a grueling season. I hunted all bow season, didn't see nothing to come in range. Seen bucks, but nothing would come in range.
So you're feeling pretty beat up, huh?
I was feeling pretty beat up at that point. So
yeah, that is one of the beauties, I think, especially with deer hunting. Same thing happened to me. Like I hunted early season. Like I had these spots I thought were going to be great for early season. They were a bust, every one of them. We hit like October 20th, first time sitting in a new spot, and all of a sudden this big old buck shows up, and then I chased him for like 2 weeks trying to get on them.
Yep.
Get on him. Now, never worked out, but like it's amazing how quickly it can flip flop, and it
only takes about 3 seconds.
Yeah.
For your entire season to change.
Yeah. Like I don't know, like you. I don't know if you ever play these games where like you like intentionally try not to pay attention.
Yeah.
Like knowing that like the moment I'm not paying attention, that's when they show up. So like you try to play that game of like trying to test fate of like, I'm not paying attention, I swear. Now's a good time for a deer to come by.
I like to hunt in rifle season when there's a blizzard coming, or muzzle loading. When there's a blizzard coming and all of a sudden the wind picks up and you can't see 10 feet in front of you and it settles down and all of a sudden there they are.
Oh, yeah?
They just appear. I haven't noticed it so much now hunting the style that you have to hunt now versus over bait. Like bait, that was how it was. That was just, I remember being a little kid, and that was just when I first started hunting, that was the adrenaline rush. You'd wait for the wind to pick up because you knew all of a sudden, just poof, at a magic time they'd be there.
Yeah. I ran into that. I noticed that quite a bit running food plots on the private ground, knowing that you have a really good food source, and you get like either like a heavy storm, like either a rainstorm or a lightning storm or a big blizzard, or even like a really cold snap. Like if you get single digits, they're coming with the food, and you just got to wait them out.
Yeah,
that's all you got to do.
That's all you had to do. I will say I have seen a lot more deer and bigger bucks not hunting that way than I ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, now we're on a completely different tangent, but that's one thing I like about going to like the state land, or public land, I guess you could say, is you can try a lot more techniques than you would if you were sitting over a food plot or a private piece of ground that you're basically just waiting on the deer to show up. So, but yeah. So you got your buck after So what do you think? Do you think he was just cruising looking for does then? Like,
yeah.
So he just didn't care that there was.
He was not in a hurry whatsoever.
Yeah. Now, did you see any does that morning come through the area?
Nope. So just those two.
They were the only two.
They were the only two deer that came through that morning while we were there.
Okay.
You could see tracks where deer had been through there that morning because there was a little bit of snow on the ground. Not much, but there was still a little bit.
Yeah. And you be down by that creek, you probably didn't have that much.
Nope.
Yeah, because it's always that water holds that temperature weird.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then how old do you think your buck was that you shot?
I'm gonna guess he was probably 2.5, 3.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the picture you sent me, he looked like a dandy too, and he was what, an 8-pointer?
An 8.
Yeah.
He wasn't super heavy horned. Wasn't wide. He was pretty tall. I mean, he would have been a lot bigger this year, obviously, but it was just what it ordered for me.
Yeah. No, especially like, I don't know. It's always weird. Like on the farm, like I like to go for or try to go for a 3-year-old or better. Like this guy that I got with my bow, like I didn't care. He looked good, so I shot him with a bow, and he was only 2.5-year-old. Now going forward, ideally, if they're 3-year-old or better.
Right.
State land, if I think they're a 2-year-old, they're getting an arrow. Not even questioning it. A 1.5-year-old little basket rack, they'll probably get the pass because I can always shoot does for the meat. I do want a little bit bigger buck on public land, but
right.
But yeah. But again, as the season progresses, that
standard goes down.
That standard gradually gets more lenient for sure. So, all right, so you got him. You had to go into the creek, through the muck, drag him out, which that's, you ever listen to Mark Kenyon's Wire to Hunt?
Yep.
He always talks about type 2 fun. Yeah. That sounds like type 2 fun.
It was.
It sucks in the moment, but it makes a great story.
Oh, it made the best story. That whole day.
So, yeah. So how deep was the muck that you had to go through?
Oh, I was all in knee deep.
Okay.
All of knee deep.
I will say I tried going out steelhead fishing this spring out to Otter Creek.
Yep.
I fell in a hole that was I almost went over my waders.
Oh, dear God.
I fell in muck. The water was 6 inches deep. I fell in the muck that was chest deep. I almost was going to have to call for help because I didn't know if I'd get out of it. I literally went from like solid ground, one step, bloop, chest deep in muck. So muck is no joke because you never know how deep it is.
Well, it started getting deeper in some spots. When I got him out of the creek, it wasn't too bad. It was only 30 yards of it I had to cross, but it took me like 25 minutes to drag him through there. Like, I thought about gutting him right by the creek so I didn't have to drag all the extra weight.
Yeah.
But
did you think about any point just like either toting him upriver or down creek to...
You could walk, but you had to cross over all the... Like, the creek was actually pretty deep for a while where he was at.
Okay.
You'd have to get him up over a bunch of log jams and stuff, and it... it would have been more of a hassle to do that than it was to get him out.
You took the path of least resistance, huh?
Pretty much, or so I thought. There was one where I stepped in and I went to my knee and fell forward because I had so much forward momentum pulling, dragging him. And I fell forward, and luckily there was a falling down log that caught me.
Jeez. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad that you didn't get hurt or it wasn't dangerous for you.
No.
It was a pain in the butt. Again, you look back on it, smile, shake your head like, jeez, amazing.
It made the best story, though, and the best Thanksgiving. Like,
all right. Well, then did you get this doe? I'm assuming it was
same night.
The same night. So you went.
We went back out there.
So wait, hold on. So you were saying that you're not going to do 3 deer again, but that you already have 2, and you went out that same.
We went out that night.
All right.
We went out there that night, and because I had cyber scouted a couple spots, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "Well, that looks like a pretty good spot." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you got to get back in there a ways for it to be good." But you could see where they were crossing the road.
Okay.
So I was like, "Well, why don't you go sit that other clear cut up there?" Because there was multiple clear cuts over there. This one was probably only maybe a year, maybe 2 years old. Didn't have a whole lot of browse, but you could see where deer were crossing through it. And I told him, "Why don't you go sit up there, take me up there, but I'm going to walk this road back." It was probably 1.5 miles, 2 miles. And so I just slowly walked the road back. And 2 does crossed the road. And it was like 5 minutes before the end of light. I ended up shooting a doe. So yeah, 3 deer in one day is a lot to take care of.
Well, I mean, you already got all your supplies out of it. So
I mean, everything was out and bloody and dirty, so why not, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So was this in the same area where you got your bucks, or did you go?
It was probably 1/4 mile from where I shot them.
All right. So what looked good about that spot then?
It was a hardwoods, not pines. So there was a transition line.
Okay.
There was a hard transition line. It was a thick red pine, so you couldn't really see in it or through it.
Okay.
And then it crossed the road into probably a 5 or 6 year old clear cut. And there was a prominent trail that crossed right there. That's where I originally wanted to get back to. And I knew if I made it back to there just before the end of light that I was probably going to see something cross there. But they were crossing in to the clear cut just like I thought they would.
So they were going out to the clear cut for their evening.
Exactly.
All right. Did you pinpoint any bedding, or did you just know that that's where their food source was and they were just going to come?
So the hardwoods, when I had walked that hardwoods probably 2-3 months before, and there was no oaks in it. It was all maples and popple and stuff like that. So there was nothing for them to eat there. And when I didn't see nothing, they weren't crossing the road back towards where we shot them bucks. I kind of figured they had to be going the other way. And that's when I had seen that trail. When I seen the transition on the cyber scouting, I seen that trail when we drove through there. And I kind of figured that's probably what they were going to be doing.
So you were able to see the trail even just from the digital mapping?
Yep. No, I seen that on foot. When we drove down the road looking for trails, that's when I seen that trail, which was right exactly where I figured it was going to be.
So it caught your eye because of the clear cut and then the transition between the different types of cover.
The transition on the cover and then the clear cut.
Yeah. It's amazing. I wonder what the evolutionary advantage it is for deer to hang on to those edges like that. Like if it's just like a good escape route where they can go one way or the other. But yeah, they love whenever even if it's like mature timber. If you have mature pine and then next to mature hardwood, like that edge for whatever reason
that's a coverage differentiation, and that they love that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's either that or even if you have like I've ran into in some of the state land by me where you might have a solid hardwood, but if you have a terrain difference. Even if it's all the same style timber, even if it's all mature timber, you find an elevation difference, that's where it is.
It's like even I don't know. I look back at it and realize like it's so much simpler than you would think.
Yeah.
Like, just look for the transition, look for something different, and you're probably going to find deer sign there.
I look at all the spots I used to hunt, and I wondered why I could never close the deal. I would see them on camera, but I could never close the deal in person. And I look back at them after learning all this other stuff, bedding and scrapes and topographical and your transition lines. And I look back at it now, I'm like, well, no wonder I was in the completely wrong spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. Even from season to season, I look at a spot and I'm just like smack yourself in the forehead. Like,
Yep.
You dummy. It's right there. There's the answer. And
So my cousin's the one that actually got me back into bow hunting.
Yeah.
And now he's got me into looking at all that other stuff and whatnot, and watching Dan Infalt and Exodus and all those guys and listening to the podcasts. And I've learned more this year about topographical stuff than I ever have.
Yeah. So with that, because all those guys have, you listen to any of the big time hunters, the guys that get it done every year, they all have their own style. So I'm curious, have you been able to pinpoint a style of hunting that you think is more of your niche or more of what your style is?
Honestly, I take a little bit of information from all of them, and I've created like my own style.
Yeah. So what would be like? Are you focusing on the bedding? Are you looking at transition areas? What do you think is like your thing that you key on?
So the one thing I've keyed on this year is, one, I'm hunting a lot more clear cuts.
Okay.
Now
are you on the edge of the clear cuts, or are you just focusing on that? That's the food source. Come in
edge of them. There.
Okay.
So I like that transition where it'll end and it'll meet the hardwoods. But then again, I also look at, what's the topographic layout of it? Is they got like a little bench? A lot of the ones I've found this year, I like to try and find where they have clear cuts and then they have oaks outside of them, or maybe they left the oaks in them.
Yeah.
That's been really key for me to finding sign this year. And I mean, I'm no professional at it, but
right.
I've learned a lot in the last 2 years, and that has been one of them, the clear cuts with oaks next to them.
Yeah, I would say for me, I would probably say I focus on the clear cuts more so, especially the area where I had the encounters with the bucks last year. He was in a clear cut. He was following basically the high sides of the clear cut. Like there's like two higher points and there's a little bowl that ran like basically the whole length of it.
Yep.
And he was sticking to those high sides. And the one high side had some more mature pines that added for cover. And then, so like you take all those advantages. So it's the clear cut. I'm at the edge of the clear cut, and I'm on both sides of those high points.
Yep.
So it's you're just hedging your bet. That's the area that they're looking at.
A lot of the things I've been finding this year when I'm around the clear cuts and I find the oaks is if I look for higher elevation, I look for benches where it comes out to like a point. I've been getting into a lot of that, still finding a lot of beds. I've been primarily looking for scrapes and stuff as to where I'm hanging my cameras right now.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, so out of like doing all of your e-scouting, like I'm sure like when you first started, your success rate of like finding a good spot or finding a spot that had sign was probably pretty low.
Very.
Where do you think you are now, like percentage wise?
Well, actual success rate of finding what I thought was going to be there, betting, I'm probably 60%.
Really? Okay.
Scrape wise, this was the first year I've ever actually found my own scrape where I thought it was going to be. I'll be the first to admit it.
Now there's nothing wrong with that. Like of course, because they're the easiest to find, I always find rubs. Find the rubs.
Yep.
And even like I don't get excited like if it's just like, especially if it's like a sapling or like a bush that's got a rub on it. But if I see that there's historic rubs, like, well, that one looks like it's from last year. That one looks like who knows how many years. And this one looks like it's from, this year. Then I'll pay attention to it. That's what I usually key on. Scrapes, I suck at finding good scrapes. Like, I'll find the ones that were probably just like a one and done. But finding like that nice big, community scrape that gets hit all the time, I'm terrible at finding those.
I haven't found the big ones. I found the little one this year, and I didn't really. It made me question if it was even really a scrape. Like, I knew it was, but I didn't know if it was going to be open or not.
Right.
I actually got talked into putting my camera on it because it was that iffy.
Yeah.
And I put the camera on it, and literally 3 days later, I had pictures.
Yeah. Have you played around with, like, if you see like a scrape that might be, or an area that might be a scrape, or even an area that you're thinking, you just put a scrape in there, like do like a mock scrape?
Mm-hmm.
You done that yet?
Literally, I was just out in a spot with a cousin, and we knew it was an old scrape. You could see where historically they had chewed the browse and stuff on it over it and rubbed their head on them and everything. And I was setting the camera up, and he just decided that he had to go to the bathroom and literally peed in that spot. And I joke you not, my camera wasn't sending pictures, so I went back in there, and because it's Spy Point, and I went back in there and pulled it up on a card reader. And 2 days later, there was deer coming in scraping that spot.
Yeah. So, no joke. I've done that where I made a mock scrape and I forgot to bring the scent, or I just didn't have any, just did it out in the salient. And I'm one of those guys that will pee in a scrape that I just made, just cause you never know.
I've used the scent stuff and not had any luck at it at all. And then he just walks over and pees, and there it goes.
Yeah, there's something about it. Yeah.
It's like, why waste the money on the rest of it?
Yeah. I will say, though, I generally, if I think about it, if I know I'm going to make a scrape, I will take some Conquest scent. I put the dominant buck in the dirt below it, and if it's early, I'll prime it and put some Evercalm on the whatever licking branch or whatever I have for the overhead. And I'll put some of that. I'll notice initially does hit it immediately, and usually within the first couple weeks, the bucks will show up and hit it as well. But again, I've done scrapes where I didn't put any scent in it other than peeing in it,
right?
And they show up anyway. So who knows?
Right.
So yeah, so you're thinking you're focused more on the clear cut for food.
Yep.
And then you're running cameras to pinpoint on those trails that they're coming in and out of. Now, how far off those clear cuts do you think that you're pushing in towards where you think they're bedding at? Or do you scout to try to find where their bed is?
I scout and try and find their bedding. I've got a couple spots actually where I can find their bedding, and they're only like 40, 50 yards off the edge of the clear cut.
Do you think that's a buck bedding, or do you think that's the does?
One is, I'm pretty certain, is does, because there's 25, 30 beds in the same spot, and they're varying in sizes.
Sure.
I would have to assume that was probably some does and fawns, and then there's some other spots where the beds are all about the same size. They're pretty good beds, and it's like literally right around a knoll, and there's 4 or 5 beds, and that's it. Probably changing wind directions.
Do you ever look for it? So I heard one of the hunting beast guys talking about, like, if he finds like what he thinks is a buck bedding area, that he'll actually look for like either full on rubs or even just antler marks on the trees. Like they may not even be like a full on rub. He'll just notice like some scratches on a tree. Have you pinpointed any of that type of stuff? Or
no, I can't say I've pinpointed that.
Yeah, there's one area that I found where it looked like a bedding area, and there were rubs around it, so I assumed it was a buck. But again, it was after season, so who knows?
Right.
If it was the case, or if it was just a buck just using that area for rubs. So hard to say. All right, and then you're doing a lot more of the mobile hunting, so you got a mobile tree stand. Hopefully, shows up before season.
Hopefully, it shows up before season. I waited too long. I procrastinate.
Yeah, well, it happens. I mean, like I said, there's stuff that I've thought about ordering up, but I'm like, well, just hold off.
Yeah. it's so late in time now. You might as well just wait.
Yeah, and it's tough too. Like with the supply shortages and stuff, all your lead times are much longer. I'm still waiting on a dozen arrows that I ordered back this spring. I'm probably just gonna call the company and be like, I just want to return.
Yeah.
Like they're still temporary out of stock, and it's been at least 6 months that I've been waiting on these arrows. So it's tough, but yeah. So you're doing mobile hunting. So let's get into. Do you have a plan for early season?
I got one spot right now that the bucks had disappeared, and I found them again. Luckily, they did their shift the second they got hard horned. And I found them.
So do you think they're the same bucks then?
One I know is the same buck.
All right. How far did he shift, or how far did he?
He shifted pretty close to about a half mile to 3/4 of a mile.
All right.
And then I just found him. I didn't find his bed. I just have pictures of him in the area just after daylight. So I can't be too far off of where he's at, but it's the same.
Is it a morning picture you got up?
Morning.
So yeah, so you can't be far from his bed area.
7:30 in the morning. That's about a half hour from his. I got to be pretty close.
You're within his comfort zone for sure.
Yes.
That's what's up. All right.
Hopefully I don't spook him trying to sneak into that spot.
Now, do you have good access route and good stand placement for a wind?
I do.
Do you have multiple wind situations?
I do.
Oh, there you go.
I was I had to go in and change my batteries today, and
that was one of that you're doing.
I walked in and I was actually on the phone with you as I walked in.
Okay.
And I was looking at trees and where I wanted to set up and which winds and known bedding.
All right, hold on. Kane, shush. You shush. No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I had a last episode. The dogs were going crazy, and it was hard to get rid of that distracting barking and whining.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you're set up for multiple wins. Now, I did know that. Did you check the forecast? Did you see that the wind's going basically
supposed to shift?
It couldn't be any worse wind for the morning. I think, at least for this area where we're at right now, it's going to go from basically like a northeast wind. At 8 o'clock in the morning, it's supposed to switch to a southwest wind. Like, who's got a stand situation for that?
That'd be tough. Depending on which bedding he's actually bedding in, I might be able to play that off on both in one stand.
Yeah. The problem is you'd have to more than likely be farther off than what you would typically want to be.
Mm-hmm. There is a tree I could probably set back about another 40 yards, and I could play that just off wind if it shifted.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Right now, for that morning hunt, I have to go through a lot more of my potential stand locations. All my good ones that I wanted for opening day, they'll be good for that first hour.
Yeah.
But then at 8 o'clock, they're wrong. I think I don't have a good setup for.
And even if it does shift in that particular spot, I don't have any pictures after like 7:45.
Okay.
So if it still waned, if it did shift to 8, I would still be safe to.
You're basically in the clear.
Exactly.
Yeah, the one spot I was on, I had deer there later in the day, so I would have had to wait it out. But again, that's like the 2-week forecast, so you know it's going to change. So
exactly.
I'm hoping that the temperature stays the same. So it's supposed to be like 50.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
That morning.
I've been getting nervous with this 80-degree weather.
Yeah, it's supposed to get cold. I think we're actually due for rain the day or two before.
When I looked at Weather Channel, it was a 36% chance of rain Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, last time I checked, it was supposed to be Friday, the rain, which would have been perfect. A nice rain before.
Just right after the rain, opening day.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
Yep. So hopefully the wind simmers down for at least for me anyways, opening night, it's going to be a consistent, basically the wind's coming out of the southwest. I got a good spot for that. That's going to be, I'm going to be over food plot probably that evening.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then now, do you have spots that you think that are going to be good for early season, pre-rut, or are you basically staying in the same area?
I have one I'm pretty certain is probably going to be more of a rut area.
Okay.
There's scrapes there. There's a clear cut that's close, but it's quite a ways away where they're bedding right now. And then I'll catch a trail cam picture of once in a blue moon of a buck, but it's more does than anything right now.
Okay.
And the does haven't shifted at all, so come rut, I think it's probably going to be a pretty good spot. If I have all those does there,
you think it's going to be a cruising area?
Eventually, he's going to come cruising through.
Yeah, I don't know. I suck at early season. I always think I have a good spot. Like there was one spot last year, like it was an island out in the middle of this marsh. I'm like, there's a buck in there. I know it. Like, and there's two main trails coming off it. I can shoot at both. There's no deer in it. There's nothing.
Right.
No deer. They were all on like the other side of the marsh. I could see them like coming out from like 250 yards away. I'm like, well, this sucks. Like, nothing. And then I didn't get on that buck till October 20th. And then that's when, pre-rut is hitting.
Yep.
Those bucks are cruising. So I suck at pre-rut. I will say I found, as long as they have acorns this year, I found some good spots where I'm going to hunt over acorns mid-October. We'll see. And I've been, again, listening to Mr. Dan Infault talking about oxbows, where they're, those kind of like cutouts around like water. There's two of them that, or one I know for a fact there's deer in, and there's only one way out of it, unless they want to cross the big river. Another one I gotta still finish scouting, but that's thick and nasty. I have to come in basically from like the riverside, because otherwise there's no way you can get in there without letting everything know that you're coming in.
Right.
But yeah, I'm banking on pre-rut basically. Maybe if one of the cameras show something still moving, but I had the one spot I was banking on that I had bucks on like 9, 10 in the morning, like still on their feet. I'm like, oh, I gotta be close.
Right.
They're gone. Not a picture. Nothing. They ghosted me. So I have no idea what I'm gonna do for early season. I thought I had things planned out better, but
and that seems to be what I'm good at. It's early season.
Really?
And come the rest of the year, unless it's late in the season and they're all about their food, then
yeah. I do have on the farm, I've talked about this before on the podcast, I think I'm pretty sure I've got the farm figured out when the biggest bucks show up. I've got one big buck. He showed up twice now, 2 years in a row on the same day. The biggest buck showed up in daylight on the farm.
And it was probably close to about the same time of the day he showed up too, wasn't it?
The 2 years ago, he showed up at 7:30. He walked 30 yards, within 30 yards of my blind, 7:30 in the morning. He was tracking some does. Last year, he hit every one of my mock scrape throughout the day. So he showed up at 3 different potential stand locations throughout the day. And a smaller 8-pointer showed up too, which I don't know how old that buck was, but if I'd seen him, he probably would have got an arrow.
Right.
But this guy for sure would get an arrow. So I'm banking on that historical movement where he's going to show up somewhere between November 7th and 14th. Like first week of November, I'm not even going to really focus on the farm unless the cameras tell me otherwise. It's that second week of November. I don't know if it's that they know that there's those that are coming to estrus that time frame, or if it's just part of their pattern where they make their loop through the farm.
And out of all the things I've been listening to and watching Dan and all of them and listening to everything they got to say, that's actually pretty common. I haven't had that happen, but from what I gathered from them, it's pretty common to have them come through on the same day.
Yeah, the only thing I haven't figured out, I'm still trying to figure out, is if a particular doe will go into estrus same time every year. So if she goes into estrus, let's say November 2nd, the next year, will she more or less be on November 2nd the next year? Now, I'm sure there's probably environmental stuff. If she's malnourished, if she's, I'm sure, because again, the primary thing that triggers estrus is photoperiod.
Yep.
So if it's, excessive cloud cover, you never know, it might shift it a day or two one way or
Right.
the other. So I don't know how consistent a doe will be, or if it's kind of random. If she'll, pick, if she goes into estrus, like I said, November 5th, and next year she's, November 31st. Or not November, October 31st.
Right.
Like, how much of a variance is that? I can't find any good literature on that, so I don't know. But I'm going just whatever the cameras are telling me that.
If they're telling you he's coming through, then he's coming through.
Right.
So I would definitely be there.
Yeah, and that's the goal. We'll see if I can get the vacation time, because I got that, and then opening day, and then potentially going to my South Dakota hunt. And that's puts me at 3 weeks off in a row. We'll see if I can pull that off. But we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I've yet to figure out the early season. They elude me after they do their switch.
This was honestly the first year I've had any success at camera pictures and whatnot. Last year I had a big one on trail cam. Again, it was by Clear Cuts, and they had select cut everything and left all the oaks. It was a year old, so it's a 2-year-old Clear Cut this year. It's got even more growth, obviously. But I seen him opening night. I had him on trail cam, and I seen him opening night at 10 minutes till dark, and at 200 yards. He wouldn't even think about following the does that crossed in front of me.
Really?
And I never seen him again. I seen the does off and on, but I never seen him again. I never had him on trail cam again. Nothing. And then after season, so it was like rifle season, I went and did some scouting at the other end of the block, about 3/4 of a mile. Set a camera up just over a trail just to kind of see if maybe that's where they had shifted to. And I had pictures on that trail cam. I was getting 20 to 30 pictures a day of deer crossing through there, and one picture of him.
Yeah. I don't know, man. The mature buck, I don't know. Still trying to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know. It's so funny. I always laugh the fact that I do a hunting podcast, and I'm still an average at best hunter.
Nothing wrong with that. Learning every day.
So I always laugh. I'm I still have yet to kill what would be considered a monster buck.
That makes 2 of us.
But I don't know, man. I feel like I'm this close to figuring it out.
Yep.
Last year, I thought I was gonna get that buck, and yet because I had yet to really have that good of encounter with a mature buck time and time again, especially on state land, he did what a mature buck does. He didn't make mistakes. He stayed without a range. He figured out. He was cautious enough. He came within 38 yards, and he stopped behind the one tree that I couldn't shoot. He had to take 2 steps, one way or the other, and I probably could have got a shot, but he stopped right behind that tree.
Yep. It's like they know right where to stop.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I called him in from 35 or 135 yards, and I got him into 38, and yet he proceeded to stop just within enough cover where I couldn't get a shot.
That's something I've never had success in, is calling.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. If what you do calling wise, do you do any blind calling?
I do not.
No.
I tried to do it once on a deer, and all it did spook them, like literally. So I just gave up.
Yeah, I had a buck, which it was a sketchy situation to begin with, because I'm pretty sure he pegged me, but I was on the ground, so I think he didn't know exactly what it was. So I was grunting at him because he was looking at me, but I was kneeled down. So I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't know who I am. Maybe he might think I'm a deer. So I grunted at him, and he stood there. I snort wheezed at him. He turned tail so quickly that he wanted no part of that.
Yep.
But I have, a few years back down at the farm, I was listening to some guys, and they were like talking about how they really aggressively called, like blind called. So they would do basically like a combination of like grunt, rattle, grunt, rattle, grunt. So I'm like, I'll try that. So I did the same thing. I grunt. 5 minutes later, I do a rattle sequence. 5 minutes later, do another grunt sequence. Wait 15, 30 minutes, and we repeat it. And I actually called in a buck twice doing that. One, he came to the edge of the woods, wouldn't come any further. Basically like, all right, I'm here. Where's the dude I heard? I don't see him. Stood there for 40 minutes.
Wow.
Wouldn't step out. Eventually, I think he either pegged me in the tree or figured, this doesn't feel right, and he took off. Second time, like, all right, I got him this time. I took a 3D target, took it out there, set it up as a decoy. Like, all right, he's going to come in, see this decoy or see this target, think it's another deer, come in and do his thing.
Right.
Well, he came in like 40 yards further out, and I called. So I don't know if maybe he didn't hear me call this time, but he definitely came through within 15 minutes of the same time frame that he did last time. And he came in within like 5-10 minutes of when I called. So I assumed he heard the calling and came in. But he came in further out than what he did last time. So he walked by, and then he was basically like 15 yards from the decoy, and he turned his head, saw the decoy,
And
gone. So I think it surprised him, and he took off. Part of it was I was using like, I don't know what scent. It was like buck bomb. I hosed the decoy down with buck bomb. So I'm not sure if he just, because he saw it, or I think he might have winded the buck bomb, saw a buck, and was like, holy crap, bugged out. Just like the smell and the sight of a deer standing there surprised him, and he took off.
Right.
So calling wise, I think it worked. The decoy, if he came in and saw the decoy as he came in, might not have spooked him as much, but it surprised him. So I don't know. I've had success blind calling, but usually it's my latest thing now is doing just a contact grunt. See a buck, do a burp, burp, get his attention, make him realize that there's potentially another buck there, and then just call him that quits. Now, like this buck last year, he came in, he cut the distance by about 80 yards, and started heading back into the woods where he was heading to begin with. Gave him a couple more burp, burp, and then he came back, looped back around, looked back into the clear cut, didn't see a deer. So he said, all right, well, there's no one here, bugged out, and went into the woods. So contact grunt wise, I think you can get their curiosity enough to be like, well, who's that? And try to investigate that way. But outside of that, I don't know. I've had success doing both. So it just depends on trying to read the deer and if you think what they'll respond to. Because yeah, I had an instance where I was a little too aggressive. The deer bugged out. Whereas other times I've called in like I was really aggressively. Usually you call in the small bucks. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced that where you either rattle or call, and here comes a year and a half old just barreling in, like not knowing what he's doing. So I don't know. I am probably more aggressive little caller than I probably should be, especially for our area. But I don't know.
If it works for you, go for it. I've never had any luck with it, so I
don't know. Like I said, I had that buck. He came in twice, and I think because of the calling, and then other times I've played it. But so I think that's usually probably just the best is like if you're not seeing absolutely anything, go ahead and give it a try. You never know. And then if you see a buck, always try to pay attention to what their body language is telling you. If they're looking like they're real aggressive, you can be aggressive with them, but at some point you may push them too far and they may bug out on you. Because same thing happened the second time I saw that buck out in the state land. He came in, again, completely different direction from when I last saw him. I called at him. He wanted nothing to do with it that time. I did the same contact run. He looked my direction, but was like, no, I ain't doing it this time, and just kept on his merry way. Third time, I contact run him. He cut the distance, but he didn't come far enough. He's like, all right, I came my 10%. Where you at?
right.
And then the other problem was there's does, so he didn't venture too far away from the does, and he went off to them. But yeah, I don't know. It's always you hear people that like, oh yeah, real aggressive calling, people that don't call at all, and it's like that's one of my things I'm most interested to talk about, especially with people that hunt in our area. What works for them?
Right.
So you focus on clear cut. You're basically kind of cutting them off to where their food source is, pinpointing their most likely route of travel,
Right.
and hopefully you find some hot sign that you can sit on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. This year, again, I'm going to try to focus on late season. As soon as we start hitting some snow, I want to try doing some tracking again. I had fun doing that last year.
Oh, it's a blast.
And, yeah, I mean, the one time I did, again, not knowing how to judge tracks all the best, I tracked down a doe, got within 80 yards of her.
Hey.
Could have shot her if I could have closed the distance a little bit more, but so that's one thing I'm eager for the snowfall to build my skill with that. So, I don't know.
I always love the first snowfall. Tells you where everything's at.
It's so beautiful. I know. I always laugh this time of year too, especially because people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's fall, winter's coming." I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Yep.
here we go." Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you feel like crisp in the air. You get all excited. It's like, ooh.
I think it was like Monday or Tuesday when it was like 54 degrees that morning. I could go out and see my breath.
Yeah.
I was ready to hunt, and then we hit Friday and it's 85.
How eager do you get when we get that first frost?
Oh yeah. I'm ready to be right in the woods. Never fails. I got to work that morning too.
There's always that, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, man. So that's cool. You got your story in, which again, I'm glad you clarified that you didn't get those 2 bucks. You did shoot the second buck, but it was technically your dad's.
Yep.
But it is always satisfying when a plan comes together.
It is.
When they do exactly what you thought they would do. So, but yeah, man, I'm so ready for season. It's what, we're 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Last weekend will be the last free weekend.
Yeah, and
till about Christmas for me.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
Even if I tag out, I think I'm just going to sit in the tree. It's so quiet out there.
Yeah. I don't know. A friend of mine, he talked to Kim. He's like, "You ready for hunting season?" And Kim's like, "Seriously?" Like, yeah, I get to lose my husband every weekend from now until January 1st. Real fun. So, whatever. I don't know, man. It's that magical time. But this year I am going to try doing some duck hunting too. You ever do duck hunting?
I haven't.
You want to try it?
I might have to go with you.
I always thought that it was always October 2nd was opener for duck, but this year it looks like I don't know enough about duck hunting.
That makes two of us.
That it looks like it's October 8th. So we got opening day is October 1st. 1 week later, it's duck opener.
AJ's a big duck guy.
Is he really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that he actually hits anything. Everybody that's went with him says he does a lot of shooting.
That'd probably be me.
That's probably going to be me, too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we might have to try some duck hunting because I want to try it. And I know at least one good spot. Where I was deer hunting last year around that marsh, there were ducks all over this little pond. And that was during the early season, so I'm like, go get some ducks early on.
I'm down to try it. Never done it.
All right, man. We'll have to go duck hunting then, because that's definitely one thing I want to try this year. I don't even know how to clean ducks.
That makes two of us. It's going to be a learning curve then.
It will be. We'll be like, great, we got all these ducks. Now what?
Yeah. We should probably focus on getting them before we worry about cleaning them.
Exactly. I know. That's why I got a whole box of shells. Like, I'm probably going to miss so much, but whatever.
My buddy's son, he missed a nice buck on the youth hunt, but he just went out bird hunting with his grandpa yesterday and shot two of them.
Nice.
I don't know what he was shooting. He just said he got two birds.
All right. Yeah. Again, I haven't done enough bird hunting to know. I know goose is open right now.
Yep. One of the customers' houses, I was just digging his house, and he went down to the lake and shot two. While we were there. He was 20, so he didn't care going up and down the hill, running back and forth when they'd fly over. He didn't care. He'd run up and down the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I went out, tried doing squirrel hunt yesterday. We didn't see any squirrels, but yeah, squirrel hunting, goose hunting, deer season is coming up. Bear season is right now. Elk season's right now.
Speaking of bear, I went in and pulled one of my trail cams today and actually kicked a bear up.
Really?
It was about 80 yards from me.
How'd that feel?
And if it's the same one I have on camera, that was sow with two cubs.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah, I was a little nervous on that one.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you carry?
I do.
Yeah.
I am a CPL holder.
Yeah.
And I have a 9 and a 45, and I carry the 45 when I go out in the woods.
Yeah. When down at the farm, I got pictures of a sow with a couple cubs, and it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it was always the morning hunts that made me the most nervous going through that creek bottom.
Yep.
It's like, I don't want to be between mom and cubs for whatever reason, and have it be like, a situation where I only have my bow.
Yeah.
So
I've seen quite a few bear in the spots that I've hunted. I actually had one the first time I got back into bow hunting. I had one come up to the bottom of my tree stand.
Really?
And that was 2 days later. I had my knee surgery, and my cousin went and helped me after I recovered, and we went and pulled that right out of there, and I never hunted there again.
Yeah. I've had technically two encounters with bear. One, I was so mad. Sitting on the field edge, these bucks were like making their way towards me. I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, they're going to get within range. I'm going to get a shot. They pick their heads up, looking in the woods, and they take off. Like, oh, well, what's coming? Well, next thing I know, through the leaves, here comes a black figure.
Yep.
I'm like, I really hope that's a dog. Stops right in this opening 35 yards out. Good sized bear. Not a big bear, but a good sized bear. I'm like, oh, here we go. This is interesting.
I've had them on trail cam, and most of the time when I'm walking in, like you get that sense that something's around. You can look around, you'll see like a fresh bear track or some fresh poo and whatnot. But it's weird. Like that particular sow and cubs, I have them on trail cam at like 5:30 in the evening, and then 6:15, I have two deer on the same scrape.
That is interesting that it does seem like the deer aren't affected by a bear presence as you would think.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had pictures of like bear, coyote, bobcat
Yep.
cross through on the game trail, and then 10 minutes later, here comes the deer down the same trail. It's interesting that like they can tell like if it's a threat or not.
I was hunting in Manistee County one time, and I was hunting not far from a friend of mine, and he texted me. We had went in at the same time. We'd rode down together, and he texted me. He's like, "Hey, you got something heading your way?" And it was still dark. Like we'd got in there super early, knowing other people hunted there, so we'd spook them around to us. And I'm like, man, dude, there is something at the bottom of my stand. What is it? That is not a deer. It started getting light enough you could see. I was like, that is not a deer. And we had bear on trail cam, but it was a huge boar. It was probably like a 450 pound.
Oh, geez.
But it never had. It was a boar, and never seen him. Finally, curiosity got the best of me, and I turned my headlamp on, and it was two cubs.
Oh,
No mom, just two cubs.
yeah. Yeah, the other encounter that I had outside of seeing tracks that looked fresh was I was hunting again down at the farm and down in the backfield, like the back corner of the property, and here comes a bear coming through, heading towards like the house.
Yep.
So I'm like, we got 15 minutes of light left. I could wait it out, but I don't want to go through there
In the dark.
So I got down, hurried up, made it through the little creek bottom area up the 2-track. I get to the top field. I look down the wood line. Within seconds of me popping up over the hill, here comes the bear. Like, it was a good 200 yards out, but it was running parallel with me. And I'm just like, all right, well, at least we're on the open field. So I made it up to the house, and he stayed down there by the wood line. But it was like, whew. If he had turned, we would have came probably face to face.
Honestly, I'm more worried about coyotes in a lot of the places I hunt than I am a bear. I mean, a sow and two cubs, that makes me nervous. I'm not going to lie. But I've actually had coyotes follow me out.
Really?
I've shot two of them with my handgun because they were following me out, and I turned around and they were like 10, 15 feet off the back of my heels.
Jeez, that's aggressive.
Like you can hear them coming.
I've had one meet me going down the trail. Like, it was coming one way, I was going the other, which that was funny because I noticed it before it noticed me. And like, it got within 20 yards and all of a sudden like stopped. Like, whoa, what is that? But then the other one, it was like 15 yards, but it was going parallel. I've never had them
I get nervous.
follow me along.
I get nervous when like you see them during daylight and you're like, man, I should probably help out the deer population. But at the same time, and then I always like, man, that could be somebody's dog. Like, because there's a lot of dogs that get mixed up in the packs out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like Kane. I didn't show you. There was a picture of a black coyote that has the exact same white patch that Kane does, and they look like cousins. Like,
See, that would
his ears are a little bit shorter because he's not a coyote, but like if you saw them, like that's why I got that nice orange collar for Kane, because if he ever gets out and takes off, he's going to be confused as a coyote.
And see that I would feel absolutely awful if it was somebody's dog, like in the dark and they're trailing me out. Like you can hear them. Now you've come close enough. I don't care at this point.
Yeah.
But
yeah, man. I don't know. I'm excited for this year. I'm optimistic, even though at least one of the spots I was really banking on for early season, it looks like it's going to be a bust. I don't know. It's always, you go into the season with so much optimism. You got just brand new season. You never know what happens.
I mean, I'll be honest. I've been working on one spot for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Still finding out new stuff every year.
That's the nice thing. Like the same thing. The spot that I had all those encounters with a buck, I scouted just a few weeks ago, and I learned a whole lot more. Like I pinpointed down where the two most likely crossings over this creek are, and that's what I'm gonna focus on. Same thing, like you said. That's like you get that area where you're the more likely area, and like you said, if you find as you learn more, you pinpoint that,
Yep.
narrow that search area down a little bit. Just hedge your bet.
It's the best you can do.
That right? I know. Yeah, and then you're gonna try out some saddle, maybe.
I am.
Yeah.
I think you just talked me right into trying that out.
I don't know. I hate the stigmatism that saddle hunting's gotten. Like, it's like the golfer type mentality. Like,
Yep.
oh yeah, oh, you're a saddle hunter. Okay,
Yeah.
haven't heard that before. But I don't know. I tried it and I fell in love with it. It just worked for me.
I mean, it's one of those things that's probably not going to be for everybody, but you don't know till you try it.
Yep.
You know, it could be great for a spot you want to scout your way in. And just, you don't get out of work in time or something. You only got a couple hours. You're still going to scout your way in and sit up on some good sign. And you don't really want to lug around your sticks and your stand. And you don't know if it's really going to be a good spot. So you're going to spend, 20 minutes getting up into the tree and get the stand situated and everything. And
yeah, that was the biggest thing. Like, I bought a mobile tree stand last year. And even just like practicing with it, it was like, it's still a pain in the butt. Like, at least for me anyways. Like, it was just like, you're still dealing with this big bulky metal thing. And then the saddle is like, you literally climb up the tree with your sticks, throw a rope around, connect it to yourself.
Yeah.
And you're set.
I feel like it's less things you have to take in. Like the new stand I ordered, it's only 6.5 pounds. But you still got your full harness on and all your sticks and everything and the seat that's on it and your bag that you take in. And like your saddle, I see it's got all the accessory bags right on it.
Yep.
Like you don't have to carry an extra fanny pack or a backpack or something.
Yeah, depending on how much you like to take with you, yeah, you can be very minimalized with it. Yeah, I mean, like my bigger sticks I ran last year, I basically took like an end of a strap, double looped it, so I like shouldered my climbing sticks.
Right.
And then I had carry my bow in my other hand. And that was, aside from like the backpack that I like to carry with like some sand or my grunt tube or something like that in it, like that was it. So, I don't know.
It's going to be a new experience, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm always down to try something new.
Yeah, and it's really nice too. The one thing I like about it too is like, yeah, it's the mobile stuff is really nice because I did have like a permanent stand out in the state land 2 years ago. And it's like you're just advertising your presence.
Yeah.
Like with the mobile stuff, you can take it all with you. You can slip in, slip out, none the wiser. No one knows you're hunting there.
Yeah, no one knows you're hunting there. And say they catch you in a tree in one spot, they've pinned you if you're in a ladder stand. That's what I found out. Once they pin you, it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look for that tree.
They will look
spot.
at that. They will look up that tree. Yeah.
Exactly. Versus I could sit the same spot and I could sit every wind as long as it wasn't going to blow where they came in at. I could set multiple winds. I could set up on an off wind. I'm not strapped to one tree.
Yep. Yeah, if they pin you in one spot, or I've even done it where mid-hunt, realized that I was off a little bit, climb down, move trees.
Yep.
And you can be right up hunting within 15, 20 minutes again, and you're in a better location. Yep. Yeah, that mobile stuff, it's especially if you're in an area where you're hunting bigger areas, state land, public land, whatever, is a game changer because, yeah, like I said, you can be super aggressive. If you blow that area out, you pull everything down with you that hunt. Like you said, move 20, 30 yards, and you're still in the hunt.
Yeah, you're back in the game.
Yep.
Sometimes that's all it takes is 20, 30 yards, and you're back in the game.
Yep. Oh, I know, man.
Or
All you need is that deer to be a few steps one way or the other, or a couple of yards closer. And that's the difference, especially bow hunting, man. That's what I love about bow hunting. It's a game of feet. One step or the other. You pick one tree over or another, and that can be between getting a shot or not.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. Like that, I love the challenge of it. But then it's usually at the point where it's like it's rifle season. I'm like, finally, I can reach out and touch them.
Exactly. And that's what I grew up was rifle hunting. I didn't really care for bow hunting. And I got the stigmatism of bow hunting. A lot of people wounding deer, and I don't want to wound no deer, but you know, it's going to happen. You know, as I grew up, then I started seeing people wounding deer with rifles too. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they just rushed the shot or didn't bother to care, or
you still hear those stories every year. I don't understand it. I heard something, so I shot.
Yeah.
How do you not know what you're shooting at?
Like, that was the biggest thing my dad and grandpa ingrained in my head. You know what you're shooting at and what's behind it.
Yeah.
If you can't see it, you don't shoot.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe some people get so much of a buck fever that like they get tunnel vision and just like their mind plays tricks on them. They see what's not really there and they assume what it is. I don't know. It's got to be something like that. I can't imagine people like actively shoot at something they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like they got to think they're seeing what's not there or something. I don't know.
That's a good possibility, but I sit here and think about, how do you mistake a horse for a deer or another human being?
Yeah. How do you expect something blaze orange as a deer? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I know buck fever is a real thing, but how do you get that confused?
Like, I will say that one time there was like, I was still a teenager, so I was young, so that's gonna be my excuse. Is like, had a squirrel run through, and like you heard it sound like a deer running, and like for a brief second I thought I saw a deer, and all of a sudden like I finally like snapped out of it, and it's like, oh, that's a squirrel.
Yep.
Like the sound of the squirrel running had me convinced. So like my initial like movement, like seeing a movement, I saw a buck.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden, like, that's a squirrel. So I can see how that could potentially happen. Again, I was young, so maybe that was my excuse, but I don't know.
It's all part of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. But yeah, so you're set up, man. You got your plan.
I just got to execute it.
It's got to fall into place, right?
Exactly.
So, do you feel confident shooting your bow?
I do.
You confident? All right. And you got your bow set up. You've drank the Kool-Aid of heavy arrow, single bevel, penetration is key. So, which, you know what? I always laugh because you look back, that's how archery started. You had heavy arrows, you had smaller broadheads, and you got pass-throughs. Now, even just talking with or listening to people that do like tracking, like dog tracking wise, from my understanding, the number one thing that will determine if you get a deer or not, or if you recover your deer, is if you get a pass-through.
Yeah.
So having that set up is more apt to get you your pass-through. So.
And, you know, I'll be the first to tell you that the stigmatism that the Rage has got. I was using Rage, and I have never shot a deer with my bow yet, and I've only got back into bow hunting for maybe like 6-7 years, but which is probably why I'm hooked. Is I can't master. It's like golf. You go out there, you still golf. You ain't good at it, but you still out there, you know. But I wasn't confident in the Rages at all.
Yeah.
Had them, wasn't confident.
Yeah, Rage. They are fantastic if you're behind the shoulder, going through rib.
If you make the perfect shot.
If you wouldn't even necessarily need that. If you stay away from heavy bone, it's gonna create a huge, wound, lots of damage, plenty of blood. Like the one doe that I shot, that I recovered with shooting Rage, I mean, I was walking at a normal pace, just following a clear path to the deer. Now, I had shot a doe that I didn't recover because of the shot was forward, probably hit the shoulder blade, probably hit that scapula, didn't get good penetration. It's just by design how the faces work with that broadhead that again, probably the other issue was too, I didn't have real heavy arrows. If I had a heavier arrow that had more momentum, maybe would have had more punch, but I was still relatively light. A wide cutting diameter broadhead, you burn up a lot of energy trying to make that big cut. I mean, I've harvested deer. I have friends that have used braid for years. Love them.
Yep.
But if you want to get closer to that focal point of the vitals, get closer to the heart, you run that risk of you're going to get into that shoulder. If the deer ducks just right, turns just right, you're going to hit that shoulder. So by having a smaller cutting diameter, heavier arrow, one that's going to not burn through as much energy to cut, and give you that boost of potential more penetration. Well, we should probably wrap this up anyways, because we've been at it for almost an hour and a half now. You still need to get home so you can.
This is true.
Go to work in the morning, and I can go to work in the morning. So
you got a lot longer drive than I do.
I'm only going to Cadillac tomorrow, so.
No.
All right. So anything else that we think we should wrap up? We covered your deer story, your deers, your bucks, your plan, your strategy,
new equipment.
The new equipment. I think that covers it, man.
It does.
All right. Let's wrap this up so we can go eat some food.
Sounds good.
All right. A big thanks to Lee for coming on to the show. I kind of sprung it on him a little bit that we were actually going to be recording. I think he has a suspicion that I was going to set him up and get him sitting down to do a recording, because I had brought up to him before about potentially doing one. A lot of good information. I really like the fact of being able to share just a different hunter's approach to deer hunting. That's one thing I'm really been interested in, and just how everyone approaches or what their strategies are going into deer season or throughout the deer season, on how, what their thought process is, why they're hunting in the areas they are, because everyone's a little bit different on their approach to it. So it's really fun to listen to how other people attack the season. So, but yeah, again, ran a little long. We got off a little off topic on a couple times, but that's what happens when you're talking with an old friend. So thank you for listening. I mean, deer season's right around the corners. I hope you're prepared. Hope you're ready to go. Hope you're getting excited. And with that, as always, get out there, be safe, and have fun.